It is June 17th, and you are live on Shally's Alley with a special episode on not just Power Automate Desktop from one of the most advanced users known to mankind, but also some secret sauce around LinkedIn X-Ray and some newly discovered, at least by Mike's own admission, commands for LinkedIn Recruiter that may even be undocumented. Is that true?
That's true. Yes, that's true. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So you're breaking news. I didn't know I was a news show, but here we go.
Oh yeah, this is breaking news. We're going to share it on your show. It's going to be great. Good to be here. Thanks, Shally.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Mike. Everybody, this is Mike Santoro. He works for All Search Recruiting, and he is highly recommended by my most esteemed brother, Glenn Guttmacher. Glenn said, Shally, if you want to do anything about Power Automate Desktop, since I've been out of the scene for about, about 6 months or so, I stopped using it. I went all Mac now, so I don't have Power Automate Desktop anymore. I kind of miss it, and I think a lot of things have happened since I abandoned it. And so Glenn was like, you got to have Mike on the show. So I begged and I pleaded, and Mike finally said, okay, fine, sure, I'll do it. So here we go. We got Mike Santoro live talking about Power Automate Desktop and a few other things. So, Mike, first of all, just how did you get into this whole Power Automate Desktop thing? Are you like me, like extremely lazy? Is that the thing?
No, actually, I was inspired, Shally, by watching you and Glenn about a year or so ago when you guys were on Shally's Alley, and you were showing how you were scraping Google and Bing and other things, and then uploading them into Seek Out. And so I basically, at that time, I had copied your process there, replicated what you had done. The code stopped working for me now. A couple months ago, I got back into it. And I had to redo the whole thing. But I took a method that I have shared on some of the Facebook groups, the connections range method, which I can get into, because that's really what is the power behind it. And I used that method to basically X-ray for more LinkedIn profiles. And I found a couple other keys to Power Automate that make it a little bit easier to get that. But that sounds really technical, and I don't want to discourage anyone from listening, because it's really the method that you can replicate. You don't necessarily need to use Power Automate Desktop.
Right. This works with anything. It's just the Power Automate was the platform that Glenn and I were experimenting with back then.
Right.
And yeah, please don't be scared off. It's actually a lot easier. When Glenn and I first started doing it, it was learning. I mean, we were learning on screen and bumbling through, making mistakes and trying to figure it out. And it's just gotten a lot better. So if you remember those days and it kind of freaked you out a little bit because it's like, wow, that looks like a lot of work. Well, you know what? We did the work, so you don't have to. And now Mike's going to share with us the shortcuts. So definitely want to learn from you on that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. So I really just wanted to say to start out that my goal is to share with the community. The Talent Source community has given me so much. I've noticed that over the last few years, as I've gone to conferences and contributed and listened to people speak and read publications, that there's been a lot of sources that share on the tech side, like tech recruiting, IT recruiting. So my goal is always I've been looking at all this. I'm like, I'm not a tech recruiter or IT recruiter. I recruit engineers and like mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, construction, management type professions, those kinds of things. So non-tech roles. So I'm trying to fill the gap for all the recruiters and sourcers out there that need some tips and tricks that aren't tech associated, aren't IT associated, that can really get value out of something right away. So all the things that I've shared and published already, that's kind of my primary goal. I'm trying to fill that void to help those kinds of recruiters. So hopefully simple.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it sounds like it. So now you had mentioned that you wanted to do some full screen sharing on Power Automate. You want to just start with that? Just kind of walk us through the connecting discovery.
I was actually hoping, Shally, that I could share a little bit more about the big news this week that really impacts the method that I want to talk about, the connections range method, which is, did you happen to see, Shally, what Irina had published earlier in the week on the 570 million profiles with out of years of experience? Did you happen to see that?
No, I did not. I'm sorry, but it sounds like 570 million profiles is a pretty exaggerated, probably fake number.
So let me show you this. It's pretty wild. So this really impacts the importance, I think, of the connections range method. And I
Let's
think
start
it's
with
kind of
that.
a
Yeah.
new.
What is the connections range method? Let's start there. Yeah.
Let me share my screen here, Shally. We can get into it here. So you guys can see my screen, Shally?
Yeah. Yep. You're full screen, and then you and I are kind of in the bottom right there.
Awesome. So here we can see like there's 860 million. This is just LinkedIn Recruiter. I just want to show you a couple examples here of why we're getting into this and why it's important. There's 860 million profiles globally on LinkedIn. You click this button here, you can kind of see 861 million. What Irina did, which I think is big news to share, is that she used this advanced operator, this hidden operator, years of experience, to exclude all of the profiles that don't have years of experience. So there are 550 million LinkedIn profiles globally, 555 million to date.
Well, let's take that with a grain of salt. We don't know if that's true. We have no idea if it's 500. It's probably a lot less than that. But yeah, I don't want to stick to the number. Just realize there's a lot of duplicates and a lot of fake profiles and so on.
Right.
So,
I'm not even talking about that. So like there are about 300 million profiles that actually have years of experience on the profile. So what I'm trying to point out here is that of all of these profiles, there's about 65% or so, roughly, we're talking here with numbers, that don't have years of experience on their profile. So like if you click into like this guy here, he doesn't have years of experience. He has education, he has summary, he's got a headline, he's got his name. Why this is so critical is because there is such a large percentage of people that have LinkedIn profiles that don't have much data on them.
Yeah, they're incomplete. I like to call them anemic profiles, anorexic profiles.
Yeah, like their job title, like they have name, they have headline, they have maybe some education. They might have a summary section in their profile. So this person has a pretty robust summary section, but no work experience here, no number ranges on years of experience.
Right.
So you might get a few data points here if they have a headline. So what I'm trying to say here is that we need to stop looking at LinkedIn so much as a resume database and realize it's a lot more like a directory. A lot of these profiles aren't filled out to where you can query them like you can a resume or in a resume database. So it at least shows us that we need to at least run searches both ways with just like with keyword dense queries where we're searching with, and really getting tight with our searches, and also keyword light searches so that we can capture some of these and get some of these more. So that's where it comes in handy when we talk about X-ray and the new things that the new operators like headline and in Anchor that we can use in X-ray to search for headlines. It's going to make it a lot easier for us to find more people this way.
So I'm sure you're going to show us this in a minute here, but I wanted to interject and see if I recall correctly, the minimum requirements for a profile. It's been a while since I created a profile, but I remember that you have to have an employer, but it doesn't have to have a date. So like company name is a mandatory field. I believe education may also be a mandatory field. Again, not dates. And the headline is created from your employer and job title. So that's not mandatory. It's like automatically by default created. You can edit it, but it's by default created. So there's only like a handful of things: your name, your location, an employer, an education, and something in the summary that are required. And so a lot of people just basically, let's face it, they do the minimum, right? They do what's required, and that's how you end up with so many profiles, as you're explaining, that have this missing information. So if you use a tool that does a search for years of experience, these profiles, these millions, we don't know how many, but certainly millions, just simply won't show up in Seek Out or in Hire Tool or on LinkedIn Recruiter when you're doing years of experience. So this is, just want to drive home the point, Mike, that I think a lot of people may not be understanding what you're saying. The big deal here is that the comprehension of millions, an order of magnitude of millions of profiles are not findable when you limit your search to a year or 2 or 5 or whatever of experience.
But it's even more than that.
Let's stop doing that. Yeah, great. Yeah, let's stop doing that. And now show us what to do.
Yeah. It's even more than that, because what I think Irina's article came up a little bit short, because she said basically don't use the years of experience filter because that's going to eliminate all those profiles. What I'm saying is people that have these keyword light profiles, basically, if you start adding any extra keywords into the search that aren't job titles, aren't headlines,
They're out.
aren't like their university or something, that's going to automatically cut out all those people. So
Right.
we need to be careful when we search beyond just
Company name, job title.
headline. We at least need to
Exactly.
run two searches, one that's dense and one that's light, so that we can capture all of those people. So for example, US 180 million profiles, only 100 million, so it's like 65% have years of experience. So, you know, even if you're just looking at the US, it's like more than half only have years of experience. So why this is all important is because I think it just stresses the importance of running searches. Just stop looking at LinkedIn completely as a resume database. I think that's what's critical. We can get more candidates that other people aren't finding if we do some light searches. So there's
gold in them there hills.
Yeah, there's a lot of gold there, exactly. So to show you the real method here that I wanted to share that goes into the Power Automate desktop, let's look at a LinkedIn profile, a public LinkedIn profile page. So I got one here copied of a registered nurse in Philadelphia. This is what it looks like when you're not logged into LinkedIn. This is what this person's profile looks like.
This is what
so
Google
it has a lot
sees,
of data on
Bing
it.
Sees,
It has all their
this
work
is what publicly
experience. It has
indexed.
their location. Right, this is what's publicly indexed in Google, right? Exactly, or Bing or the other ones. What I want you to notice here is this is the pattern that I found when you look at the location that somebody lives. This one, for example, is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States, 157 connections. So whenever we've done searches on Google for X-ray, we've always typically recommended, you know, some people use the around function to tie this to connections. Some people will use, you could use an asterisk in here. There's a lot of things you could do. But if you do that, you're only going to get one query where you're limited to 300 or so results.
This is because Google, to explain, this is because Google limits you to 300 results. Or
yes, but the time of that is over, Shally, because with the connections range method, we can actually take a search and use this, the same exact search, but change the variation of the connections into different ranges. And now we can get massive amount of results. So for example, if we take a query here, I've got one queued up here, like I've got site linkedin.com, I've got in title registered nurse, or in anchor registered nurse. Now, in anchor is a way that you can search for
tags inside of the
page.
Other
things. I just published this on Arena's blog, so if you want to go back there to Boolean strings, you can see that. I've detailed it all.
It's a real easy explanation, guys. The in anchor command is a Google command. It also exists in other places, but it's essentially looking for the hashtag inside of HTML. So it's a in-page link. It's a link. It's a hyperlink inside of a page to another section in the page. So think of it like you're in the page and there's like headline, or title. It's looking for those tags that are inside of that one page, not a hyperlink that sends you to another page. That's what this does.
Right. So we can get title, we can get location. There's other things. It's all documented. I tried to map it out for everybody, but I'm looking here is basically I'm saying I want people that we can use in title to look for their current job title, or in anchor to look for their headline. So this is going to search for people on Google that have in title registered nurse in their current title or in their headline. And then I'm adding that phrase that I just showed you, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. I'm saying two connections because that's one way that you can run the search. So I can run the search that way and into two connections. Here's the critical thing. And you'll see here highlighted in red, this will give me only results of people that have exactly two connections, Shally. And this is going to give me 200 or so results. Now, what's cool about what you could do with the connections range method is I can use the range operator here with 2 dots. And now I can go connections 2 through 15, let's say, and hit enter. And now I'm going to get more results that are going to include a range
2, 3,
of
4, 5, 6, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 2 through 15. So the connection range method is powerful because I could take the same exact search now and I can continue to change the numeric range here. And now each time I change it, I can scrape 100, 200 results, 100, 200 results.
Right.
You could take the range all the way from like 2 connections all the way through 500 connections. And then you can take out the word connections because some people don't have that. And then you can, so I'll show you an example. So I did.
So wait, time out. Hold a second. So this is freaking brilliant, but I just want to explain. So why you stop at 500 is because LinkedIn doesn't publish anything beyond 500. So that's not because it's some kind of max. It's just what's visibly published. Also, I had a question. Can you do one connection?
Yes, you can do that. You could run one connection as well, but you have to change. So you just
start with one
the
connection,
word to one.
like 2 to 15, then 16 to 30, then 31 to 60, or whatever, and so on.
Because it's plural. I keep the range starting at 2 for this example because you have to keep this plural. If you just had one connection, this word would actually be connection. Without the S. So we run that one separately. But let me show you what happens. It took me literally to do this search. I wanted to see how long it would take me manually because I'm going to show you how to do it through Power Automate Desktop. But I think it's just as powerful, if not more powerful and more effective, to do it manually in this connection range method. So I'll show you both ways, and you can kind of compare and decide for yourself, Shally. But here's what we have here. So here's the connections range method. Literally, it took me 29 minutes to execute this manually, Shally. You'll see on the right-hand side here, I've got 2 connections. This will go up, 3 connections, 4 connections, 5 connections. Using the range method, I got not 300 results for this query. I got 3,567 unique results for this query.
Up to the 500 connections.
Well, no, even beyond that, because yes, up to the 500 connections, but we could split that up, the 500 plus connections. You can get 500 plus connections by putting an asterisk. So if you do, no, wrong one here.
Yeah, just replace the num range with an asterisk.
Yeah, so if you change this to 500 with a asterisk, then you'll get the 500 plus connections. But now this one, depending on the sample size, you can break up even further, Shally. So people say, well, what do you do once you get to 500? Well, you could break this up even further as long as you have another number range on a profile. So think about it. What other number ranges are on profiles? Well,
I don't know, the
a lot
year?
of people put years of experience or years at a certain company from 2005 to 2007.
Exactly.
So we can just go here and go 2000 and click enter. And now we have 6 results. Let's scrape those. Then we can go 2001, enter. Now
or you can do 2000 ... 2010.
You could do that too, right? Yeah, you could do 2000 ... 2010, and now we got more results. There's 100 results. So basically, we can get a lot of these. And I want to show you. So on LinkedIn Recruiter, if I did the exact same search on LinkedIn Recruiter, and I put registered nurse in the title, and this is an advanced operator that Aaron Lutz found. So I'm giving him credit for it. But he found that you can take the headline operator, put it into the job title field, and now you can search headlines. So similarly to the in-anchor with Google, what I'm showing you is that if I ran this search in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the same exact criteria currently there with registered nurse as a job title or in the headline, I'm getting 7,000 results. And through the connection range method for free with 29 minutes of manual input, I got 3,567 results.
Well, unfortunately, so I appreciate that, but unfortunately that
powerful.
doesn't map right, because when you're inside a LinkedIn Recruiter and you're using the geography, it's actually expanding the search outside of that. And when you're using the search on Google, it's matching the keywords exactly. So that's why you get 7,000. Is they're pulling up locations other than Philadelphia inside of LinkedIn. That's why you get extra stuff. But really, if you were to compare it apples to apples, I bet you anything that the search that you did here on this page is actually giving you more results than LinkedIn, because there's a very large population of people that don't allow their profiles to be indexed inside of LinkedIn, and they don't come up in recruiter search. So you're probably getting more. It just looks like it's less because of the geography, the way that it's calculated.
Now, here's where this gets really special. I think you're right on that, Shally. Here's where this gets really special.
Yep. Oh no! What a cliffhanger! Are you still there?
You could take Seekout's freemium version, which is their Chrome extension called Sourcing Assistant. This is the best kept secret in sourcing, guys. You could take this, basically create a new project, upload candidates, upload the CSV with only the URLs to the profiles.
That's all you need.
And Seekout will map it out. And once you have,
it'll give you the rest of the
Shally, once you, what's that?
Yeah, so you just need the URL, and Seekout will give you the name, company, all the other filled out.
It will give you. Seekout will give you everything else, and this is a version. This is in their paid version. Why this is great, Shally, is because You'd have now the freemium version of Seek Out is like a skeleton. Seek Out is an incredible product, and it is like the fighter jet of recruiting and talent sourcing. I mean, it is amazing. It has incredible filters and everything, right? But that is on the paid version. On the freemium version, it's much more of a skeleton. It just kind of houses your candidates that you can input, that you upload. But I uploaded a big 3,600 people here that are all registered nurses in Philadelphia.
Nice.
But here's the great thing. You could use the search box. You could use the search box here. Now you could use Seek Out's advanced Boolean, Shally, to really narrow this down to whatever you want. So like if you wanted to find, people that have current title emergency, you could use like the advanced operator to narrow this down to people that have like an emergency room nurse.
Right. Cardiac, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, you can almost replace LinkedIn Recruiter for free using the connections range method or Power Automate Desktop and Seek Out's freemium product here.
Man, I would say you can better than replace. You can do better, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of profiles inside of LinkedIn Recruiter that you just cannot find because of that person's privacy settings. So I think it can be better than LinkedIn. Now, Glenn turned me on to this extension that I see that you have there that looks like a Pokemon ball. That actually works on this search as well, because I've done that before.
Yes. So that's exactly what I used. If we're talking about how did you scrape all these and get them into a Google Sheet? So what I did, Glenn, is I simply went here and I clicked on the Pokemon ball, which is the instant data scraper. What's cool about instant data scraper, people might not know. So I comboed it with, this is called infinite scroll for Google, which is the same as auto pagerizer. But you don't even need that. You do need that. But essentially click on infinite scroll here. And when you start to scrape these, it'll scrape 98. When you do or it'll scrape all of the pages, because it'll keep loading with the infinite scroll or auto pagerizer, whichever one you choose to use. I have 300 results. That was quick. But the other thing is, once you go to another range, so if I went here and I just adjust the range here now, I'm going to adjust it to, I'm doing the wrong tab that I was going to show something else on. But once you adjust the range and do it again, it will automatically, it won't duplicate. It'll like automatically dedupe your results. So you can just keep doing this and keep iterating, and it'll automatically dedupe. And then all you have to do is copy and paste it into your spreadsheet.
Yeah, this is what I do now, because I don't have a Windows computer. So I'm using that method, and it'll append any new ones. And then you just do it again on the next iteration, as you call it, where instead of 2000 to 2010, it's 2010 to 2015 or whatever. So that's the no Windows version. I see you're pulling up Power Automate now, so you're going to show us how to do it with Windows then.
Yeah, I want to. So basically, what I did was one of the things that frustrated me about Google, or like using Bing or another search engine, was that you couldn't use the range method, right? So Google is the only place where you can use a range method, like 1 to 20 connections, right? Bing doesn't have that. So I said, well, what if I just searched 1 connection, 2 connections, 3 connections, 4 connections, and just keep replicating that 500 times and did 500 separate searches and scraped every page. Now, honestly, I don't think it's that helpful with Bing, because you don't have an anchor with Bing. And you don't have there's just so many things. You have the proximity operator. There's just so many things that are more valuable with Google.
In anchor in Bing is link. It's just LINK link. It's the same thing. Here you.
It just doesn't work as well. But basically I created a Google one. So this is, it looks complicated, and it basically is very similar to what you did last year, except when I got to my loop here, I'm looping from 1 to 500, and there is a increase variable component here. So this is where the magic happens in this, Shally, that's maybe a little bit different than what you had created before, is I can actually take basically the 1 connection, 2 connection, 3 connection, 4 connection, and basically every time it goes through the loop, it's going to increase that number by 1. So I can get it to run 500 times. So if I'll just do a quick run through here, you can see what it's going to do, but it's very similar to what you saw before. So this is basically going to ask me, the prompt that's going to ask me to put my string in. So I'm going to put it in without the number range, because I have the number ranges inserted as a variable. And if I copy this, Shally, and I'm going to put it into, where'd it go? Here it is. I put it into here. I'm going to leave a space because then it's going to insert two connections with a closed quote.
The
and I'm
variable.
going to click OK. Now it's going to ask me for the name of my Excel file. I'm just going to call this RN4 for like registered nurses. I'll click OK. Now it's going to launch Chrome. It's going to input the it's not running for some reason.
So yeah, it launches a Chrome window, then it imports that URL and then starts incrementing the variable, runs it again.
Right.
With that variable,
I think maybe because we're on this, it's having some problems with it. But yeah, it will launch Chrome. It will insert that string, and then it's going to then continue to loop it. Let's try it again here. Let's see if it'll work here. To test. I'm not sure why I'm getting an error message here, so want on that. But yeah, I think it's failed to assume.
I can tell you why. Glenn and I ran into this before. It's because if you've got multiple instances of Chrome, it doesn't know which one to pick, so you've got to only have the one where.
Yeah, I think it's because we're doing the stream right now. But if you take my word for it, it'll basically run each one of those through the loop, 1 through 500. And I basically have it. It so that it uses like the N key to do the auto scroll. So it's going to give the N key, wait 2 seconds, N key, wait 2 seconds, N key, which is going to basically go to the bottom of the page, to let the auto scroll kick in, the auto pagerizer. It's going to extract the data. It's going to open up an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to load the Excel spreadsheet. So lo and behold, when you do that, and I ran it last night, it took about 4 or 5 hours. And I got similar results to the connection range method. I got all the way up to close to the same number, 3,000 and 3,300. But here's the reason why I think this method it's good if you like automation, but it's a little less efficient than, or effective, I should say, than the connection range method. Because what happens is each time it loops through and does a single range, it will, if there's no results, this is what happens, Shally, when there's no results, it'll actually, Google will modify the search and it'll take out your quotes.
Yeah, okay. So do you know how to fix that? Well, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, how to fix it. Right here, right now. Use the verbatim.
Okay.
That gets rid of it. It'll show you 0 results. It won't try to get, like what you're talking about is like Google trying to guess. Like, did you really mean this other thing? Because, we make money when people click on ads. So we're never going to show you 0 results because then that means we don't have any information and nobody's going to want to come back and click on stuff that pays us money. So we're going to show you something. But if you use verbatim, it can be injected into the URL so that the search doesn't iterate the guessing. Then you'll have a blank page, which will not, and then it'll go to the next iteration.
And you're talking about this right here, Shally. So you go to, for those that don't know, you go to Tools, All Results, Verbatim Mode, and then it should, I mean, I haven't tested verbatim mode out with all the in-anchors and stuff, and it's a URL, so you'll find it if you deconstruct the URL, you'll find it right there. Okay, so that might be an alternative, but what the point I was getting at basically is some of this 3,300 aren't all in Philadelphia. Some of them are in surrounding towns. They don't specifically have the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. Not all of them. Most of them do, but not all of them. So here's the thing. You've got a couple of options here. Basically, the method is the method. The options are you can do it manually. It took me about 30 minutes to do it manually, or you can have it run through either Power Automate Desktop or another scraper similar to that, like webscraper.io. You can do that with a dynamic URL. You can do it through that and probably get close to it. But here's the other problem, though, Shally, is that when you do the Power Automate, eventually you're going to run into the CAPTCHA up here. So where it'll want you to select the sidewalks or the different
tractors or the stoplights or whatever.
Here's what I found. Most of the time, it'll just accept a click, but eventually it will want you to actually select it. So I actually have the Automate Desktop programmed to go to a certain part of the screen, and it's going to send a mouse click to basically this part of the screen where the CAPTCHA would show up. And that's going to get you through maybe like 1,000 results or so. But eventually, if you're not monitoring the computer, it's not going to get you the results that you want. You're going to have to like actually click through the CAPTCHA. So again, for all those reasons, it takes a long time and you got the CAPTCHA issue. I think it's just more efficient and easier to do the range method, and it gets you the same effectiveness.
And I'm sorry, but it just, I gotta laugh. And you don't need Power Automate Desktop, which I'm a huge fan of, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But now that I'm on a Mac system and I can't, I could use Power Automate. I have to like run parallels or something like that. Right. I just, I'm giggling because you're showing me exactly what I'm doing now. And I was excited to see the Power Automate Desktop versions. Thank you for that. But I'm so glad that like you arrived at the same conclusion, because it just totally validates the fact that I was like, man, I wish I had Pad, because I think I probably could do better with Pad. I might actually be able to nope. You just showed me that I'm really not missing out on anything. I do want to say though,
I mean, if you have another computer lying around that you can set up, that's not going to interfere with your typical work computer. If you have another computer that you could run this on, kind of like in the background, and monitor it so that you can, hit the CAPTCHAs when they come up. Then I think it could work, and you could still get other work done, because it really ties up your computer otherwise. That's why I'm I don't know if I want my computer to be tied up for 4 hours, 5 hours to run that. It's not as efficient.
To explain, Mike, what that means is, for those that are listening, when you're running Power Automate and it's iterating the searches, you really can't be using the browser, because if you go use the browser, it breaks the sequence or whatever. So you kind of have to do it when you're done for the day and let it run overnight, or just run it as a separate process. But you know what? I do want to say kudos on a couple of things that I saw you do with Power Automate that are maybe not new to Power Automate, but certainly new to me. And one of them was that you actually use the end key. You send the signal of the end key as a page down. I had done that a completely different way, which was more complicated. So I really love your very simple, send the end key, and that scrolls to the bottom. And the other thing that I really like about the way that you showed this is how you can essentially launch a new Excel file as an interface. So before I had to I programmed it where I was telling it what Excel file to go to. So I create an Excel file, and then I put the name of that file into Power Automate so that it stores the data there. But what you're doing is smarter and faster, because a prompt, you created a prompt that comes up and it says, what do you want to call this file? And you give it a name, and essentially creates a brand new file for you, which is a lot less work. So you saved me a bunch of time right there in those two things.
And here's the other thing. It closes the browser each time too, and then relaunches the browser. So each time you run a loop, it would close the browser, relaunch the browser. Nice. And that automatically saves you a lot of issues. You don't have to click anywhere on the screen. And essentially it is doing everything that you did in last year. You're going to find the first free row in the Excel spreadsheet. It's going to paste the results in. It's going to save the spreadsheet at the very end of that loop and close the browser. And then it's going to redo it again. Every time. And it's going to do that 500 times. And then the bottom here is basically getting some of those extra ones, like the one connection, because you have to do that separately. Or getting, there's one that's like the 0 connections, basically, if you don't have any connections. So it will go through that, and it works. But I don't know if it's the best way. When I'm looking at, I don't know if that's the best way for most people. I think the best way for most people would be just to use the range.
Use the range on a regular Google search, and then instant data scraper to just grab it, and then just do that with the auto pagerize. Well, I use auto pagerize. You use, what was it called?
This one's, if you're using Google, it's infinite scroll for Google.
Infinite scroll for Google.
Yeah, it works just with Google.
Yeah. And folks, you're getting data that you're not going to get from LinkedIn Recruiter. I want to reinforce that. Mike's not showing you how much that matters, but it really does. I mean, there are a lot of profiles that don't want to be, people who don't want to be found inside of even LinkedIn Recruiter. You see right there, it says LinkedIn member on that one in the top there. Publicly, that person would have their name shared. They just don't share their information inside of LinkedIn, but their profile is set to be public on, whatever search. So curious, I want to challenge you to come up with a way to do this with Bing, only because, when Glenn and I were experimenting with this, after we struggled with Google for a while, I don't know if you saw this, we ended up switching to Bing for the very simple reason that Bing had parsed out the profiles into a semi-organized HTML tagging system
Right.
where it displayed it on screen. So I'm wondering if there's an advantage to solving it on Bing to be able to capture more organized data. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a data provider like Seekout, or there's others
right. That
where you
solves
can
that
basically
problem.
upload just the URLs and get this data, then you don't necessarily need
Never
it.
mind.
Seekout
Yeah, scratch
then
that.
gives you the ability to parse it too.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So there's two other things I wanted to share with the audience before we go.
Bring it.
I want to just again add value, because I feel like this whole thing could be like a little bit much for some people. But I think the cool thing that so this is a new discovery, Shally. We talked about hidden operators. If you have LinkedIn Recruiter, another hidden operator that you can put into the job titles field that, again, literally just showed up this week, we just found this week, is summary, where you can actually search the summary section of a profile. And that one works as an all-in operator. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. If I took a string like, if I took summary, and I did, let's say, emergency, and then I did in title, registered nurse, or headline, registered nurse. If I took this string here, Shally, and I put it in here, we could get people that have the word emergency in their summary section. And it's pretty cool. It's very powerful.
So this has been around for a very long time. It's used in Seekout. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Right,
that
Seekout has it. Right.
Yeah, that's where it's getting it. It's the same. I mean, they're taking advantage of the same command.
Or I could just say like summary.
A little hint,
manage.
Just a little hint for you. Any one of the commands that you can do inside of Seekout as special commands, they have an equivalent on LinkedIn. Just something to think about as you start.
Yeah, we've been trying to find the positions description one. I can't find that one, but the equivalent to that. But the summary one does work, and it works as an all-in. So if you put a phrase in here, it'll look for the word separately. But that's a really powerful thing to use in LinkedIn Recruiter if you've not known about it or not tried it, because you can query for words that are just in the summary section rather than the entire profile. So you can find more, narrow down your searches. And then the last thing I wanted to show is, even if you don't have LinkedIn Recruiter, Shally, I wanted to show my A string, which is how to find people that are A players. And I'll share with your audience. It's based on recommendations, right? So some have already shared that you could use the phrase recommendations received to find only profiles that have recommendations. But we could use the number range method again here to find people that have been recommended, and find not just people that have one recommendation, but people that have 5 or 10 or 20 recommendations. So if I took this, look at this, because if we go here, and I'll show you where this comes from, Shally. If we go to public profile, we scroll to the bottom, there's a little phrase on here that says 2 people have recommended Katie. So we could take this phrase, 2 people have recommended.
X people have recommended, right?
Put a number range in here, 5 to 75 people, whatever minimum number you want. You could then insert that into, 3 to 75 people have recommended, hit enter. And now you're going to get only profiles of people that have at least that number of recommendations. So if I go to this profile here and I scroll to the bottom, you'll see they have 7 recommendations. So if you want to say, I need to find people that are really good and I have a huge sample size, you could use this string here
to narrow down your choices.
Narrow down your choices to only people that have a significant amount of whatever significant is for your industry, a significant amount of recommendations. That is really awesome. You can plug that into your searches now and find people that have multiple. And you can't do this on LinkedIn Recruiter, Shally. There's no search field in LinkedIn Recruiter to search for recommendations. So this is something that you can do outside of LinkedIn Recruiter.
Telling you, man, it's like back in the old day when Glenn and I would find stuff that you couldn't do with a proper tool. We would figure out ways to do it, to do something better without it. Hey, I'm curious, could you try running that without the in?
Running this without the in?
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking for that is because the fact that you have that people have recommended that essentially narrows it down to a profile.
Probably will. Yes, it probably will be about the same. It's
Ah,
pretty close to the
there you
same.
go.
1,200. Yeah, it's about the
Yeah.
same.
Well, hold on a second though. Just to, I mean, as a point of fact, 1,200 is not really 1,200. We don't actually know how
Right,
many that
right,
is.
right.
It's probably a significantly lower number, and this has been.
But you can see in red here how it
Yeah.
highlights that part of the profile.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is
But
an
these are all
incredible
profiles
string that
because
you
they
can
already.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible
like
string
that.
you could use to really find people that have, that are competent, that have recommendations. So
That have
really awesome.
recommendations. Yeah, they've been there for long enough to have somebody say something nice about them. Yeah.
So that's what I got,
beautiful.
Shally.
Man, this was so much fun. I'm so excited about like being I'm back in the like discovery mode because now you got my creative juices flowing. I'm like, hey, what if you do it without the in? Like I haven't thought about that kind of stuff in a while.
Well, you called it lateral thinking, right? Recently.
Yeah, exactly.
You called it lateral thinking. Yeah. So I think that's kind of one of my strengths. I'm constantly thinking, experimenting, iterating. I don't think that something's not going to work until I could prove it not to work. So I constantly try different things. I'll be speaking next month at SOSU, and I'm going to be doing a talk on Facebook sourcing with X-Ray, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So it'll be SOSU Hack. It'll be at the end of July. Really looking forward to sharing that. I've got a lot of cool things queued up for that. Powerful ways that I've found to use X-Ray to search LinkedIn, to search Facebook that I haven't seen anybody else do. So I think it'll be really helpful. And here's the thing, I'll just give a teaser.
I gave up Facebook. yeah,
I'll just give a teaser though. I'll give a teaser, right? If I just showed on LinkedIn that a majority of the profiles only have, let's say, headlines, only have job titles, only have names, and there's a lot of Facebook profiles that only have that data too.
That's right.
So if a majority of the profiles on LinkedIn only have that data, then why wouldn't we
more than majority, a vast majority?
Yeah, then why wouldn't we look on Facebook for why wouldn't we use Facebook to search that same way?
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I was telling you I gave up on Facebook because, well, it's a long story. If anybody's following the show, kind of the battle that I had with Facebook. But that's my own personal like pain and my cross to bear. I'd love to see that. I guess I have a personal vendetta against them at this point. But there was a question from the audience there. Can you put that in LinkedIn Recruiter or only Google? To your point a couple of points ago, that was specifically the command summary and the extra commands that you showed. I believe that's just for LinkedIn Recruiter, summary and headline. Or
summary and headline, right? But you can use the in anchor
externally.
command.
Right.
In Google to find headlines and many other things. There's other fields. It's outlined in the article that explain it a little bit more, like location. There's other things that in-anchor will search, but it does primarily search. The most noteworthy is that it can search headlines. So I think it might. So
on Google, in-anchor, and on LinkedIn Recruiter, it's summary and headline.
It's summary and headline into the job title field of LinkedIn Recruiter. It might actually also work in like Sales Navigator. I haven't tested it there or found someone to test it for me, but I think that they might also work in Sales Nav, maybe Recruiter Lite. I'm not sure. But I'm actually, but I just got LinkedIn Recruiter. Like I joined AllSearch, which is a phenomenal company. I joined this company in December, and that's the first time I had LinkedIn Recruiter. I always use Sales Nav or Recruiter Lite with my past company. So so it's exciting that you could use these advanced operators in LinkedIn Recruiter, but I think it's even more exciting when you could use it without it, and you could use it with X-Ray, and you can get the same results or even better results. So X-Ray is free. The freemium version of Seekout is free. So it is, I mean, anybody that's watching has access to those for free and can get a lot of value out of it.
That's fantastic. Folks, please tip Mike on your way out, and also tip Glenn on your way out here. Glenn's absolutely fantastic summarizations. I've often said Glenn can say what I said better, pretty much, and I think he did that for you too there, Mike. Some really good summarization. So check out his notes on the Facebook group. Thank you so much for showing us some of your secrets here. And man, I wish you can come back on the show another time. This was so much fun.
It'll be my pleasure, Shally. I have so much respect for you. Thank you for everything you've done for the community and shared. I mean, I've learned so much from you. It's a pleasure just to give a little bit back. So thank you.
Oh man, no, thank you. It's all about it's all about you guys to keep this thing going. So cool. Well, have a great weekend, everybody. For those of you that have Monday off, enjoy the holiday. And otherwise, well, just have a wonderful weekend. And big ups to everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye bye.